The Lord of the Rings. Battle games in Middle-earth. Collect and paint the characters. Learn how to model the landscapes and recreate the battle scenes.
In this magazine we'll be painting our first member of the Fellowship with Frodo, and we'll be trying out a limited palette technique using Chimera colours. We'll be constructing some hedges to use in our battlefield in the modelling workshop, along with printing out some 3D alternatives. In the battle game we'll get to play out a scenario called Pursuit of the Ringwraiths. Can Frodo escape to the tree line? Can Strider make it to Frodo in time and protect him against the 5 Ringwraiths who are chasing down Frodo to capture the ring? In our painting workshop we're going to be painting up Frodo. Recently I treated myself to some Chimera colours. I want to delve deeper into mixing my own colours and really stop relying on those pre-mixed paints from Games Workshop. For this project I've decided to use a limited palette. I'm going to be using just red oxide, phthalo blue red shade, yellow ochre, phthalo green and a black and blue. I will be cheating a little bit. I'm going to still be using lead belcher from Games Workshop. I'm not quite ready to try non-metallic metal yet. Maybe I'll save that to use in another project. For Frodo's cloak I'm using phthalo green straight from the bottle. The jacket gets a coat of red oxide. I blend red oxide with a touch of phthalo blue to create a rich burgundy for Frodo's waistcoat. The trousers I experimented with diluting some phthalo blue and adding a touch of white, but I wasn't quite satisfied with the result. Instead, I applied a mixture of phthalo blue, yellow ochre with a touch of red oxide for a more appealing colour. Mixing a skin colour had me a bit worried, but I decided to dive in and create a pleasing gradient of skin tones. What surprised me the most was how adding a hint of blue to the skin tones produced far more interesting results. While painting the skin, I constantly returned to the palette, moving through the shades and gradually highlighting smaller areas until I achieved the desired look. For the hair I mix up a straightforward brown using red oxide and phthalo green. I decided to experiment by creating a range of brown tones, leaning towards the reddish side for those darker shades. I apply a base coat to the backpack. For the reds, such as the waistcoat and jacket, I prepared a few lighter tones for highlights and darker tones to use in the shadows. Next I switched back to my array of brown tones to deepen the shadows and bring out the highlights in the leather. Although Chimera colours are matte, I still applied a matte varnish to ensure a consistent finish. Now I'm cheating a little and using a shortcut colour and applying lead belcher to all the metallic areas. For the gold chain, I applied a wash of yellow ochre over the lead belcher. To add some final touches, I'm using dried pigments, applying them to the bottom of the cloak and the feet and blending until I'm satisfied with the result. In this magazine we tackle our second scenery project with a hedgerow. And with hedgerows they do affect the way the models can move around the battlefield, so they can really add some extra details into the gameplay. A base I'm using 3mm plywood, a green pan scourer, some flock, some small rocks, craft knife, a stapler, scissors, Mod Podge or PVA glue, and later on some static grass. Let's kick things off by creating our base. Use a craft knife to round off the sharp edges and give a more natural shape. Then give it a quick undercoat with black primer. To build the hedge itself, grab a green pan scourer, cut it to match the width of your base, then fold it in half and secure it with 3 staples. Now, applying a generous layer of Mod Podge to attach the hedge to the base, the next step is to cover the hedge with another layer of Mod Podge and sprinkle on some flock. I'm using sawdust flock here. When it comes to flocking the base, I've opted to use the static grass applicator to add some variety. To give the grass some extra depth and variation, I'm using a watered down Mod Podge mix with a different shade of green static grass. Now scatter a few small rocks around the base and seal them in with some more diluted Mod Podge. If you're not entirely satisfied with the colour of the flock, like I wasn't, consider applying a thin coat of flat green using an airbrush. And there you have it, a charming little hedge ready for the battlefield. Along with the magazines, I've been playing the games, but I've been using a tape measure. Now that doesn't feel quite as immersive as I'd like, and I know Games Workshop released some measures using the different weapons from the game, but they're really difficult to get hold of. So what I've done instead is I've laser cut some out. I've got the files that I used, I'll make those available on Patreon as well. I painted those up simply and you'll see me using them throughout the battle game. With that, let's get to the battle game. With this one, we'll be playing one called Pursuit of the Ringwraiths, where we have Frodo attempting to resist the ring's power and escape to the tree line. Strider, seeing the danger, is rushing towards Frodo to defend him from the 5 Ringwraiths that are hunting down the Hobbit to reclaim their master's ring. To represent the ring's power, after each priority roll, we'll roll a d6. A 6 shows the ring's power was too great, and Frodo will be unable to move. For evil to take victory, they need to kill Frodo, and good wins if Frodo escapes to the tree line where Strider entered the battlefield. And with our battle game completed, we can call this another magazine done. In this one I've really enjoyed using that limited palette to paint up Frodo. I think I learned some new techniques and I got some really good practice on mixing AI and paints. So if you haven't already, consider liking, commenting, subscribing. I love to see your comments and it really does help out the video. Join me in the next episode where we'll be painting up some Uruk-hai in the painting workshop. We'll be making a hill for our battlefield in the modelling workshop, and we'll be exploring more detailed rules for that close combat and can the High Elves stop the Uruk-hai in their tracks.